Recently, I watched Lost in Translation, a 2003 movie starring Bill Murray and Scarlett Johansson, written and directed by Francis Ford Coppola's daughter, Sofia Coppola. I guess the sauce just happens to run in the family because, similarly to my experience with both Godfather films, after watching Lost in Translation, I couldn't stop thinking about how well written the two main characters were. And that got me thinking, what makes a character stick in your mind like that? So let's try to answer that question today. Obviously, if you want your character to be memorable, they absolutely have to be well written. This is a non-negotiable.
Thanks, Captain Obvious.
I know that well written can be subjective, so I'm not trying to answer if the character is morally good, or likable, or relatable, or even consistent. The purpose of writing is to convey information to the audience, so measuring to what extent the character is understood will give us a good and relatively objective way of determining how well written the character is. Even if you want your story to have purposeful ambiguity, or you want it to exist outside the bounds of traditional storytelling, if you want memorable characters, this is the cheat code tool I would use to tell how three-dimensional and deep they are within whatever it is you're writing. Basically, the question you have to ask yourself is, can this character exist outside the bounds of the story? Let me explain. Let's take Lost in Translation as an example. If I were to drop Scarlett Johansson's character, Charlotte, in the middle of Lithuania in an entirely different story, I, as an audience member, could still imagine what she would get up to a certain degree. And the same goes for Bill Murray's character, Bob. However, for Charlotte's husband, his entire character is tied to her, so we don't know enough about him to really gauge how he would act when he's outside the context of the story he's in. Let's take another movie for example. In Godzilla King of the Monsters, if you took Millie Bobby Brown and put her in a Mission Impossible movie, I still have no idea what that would even look like. And that's not because she isn't in enough life or death moments in Godzilla to translate her character to a spy thriller. Quite the opposite actually. She's in too many life or death moments. We don't have enough personal, one-on-one exchanges or heat-of-the-moment decisions with her to really determine what her character is like outside the bounds of her original story. While I could probably imagine what Bob from Lost in Translation would get up to in Mission Impossible, and these two movies couldn't be more different. Genre has nothing to do with it, it's all about characterization. And why does this matter? Well, this is the reason why I remember Charlotte. Her drives, her motivations, her ass. While I've forgotten basically everything about her husband, including his name, and it hasn't even been a week since I saw the movie. This is because, when someone understands something on that deeper level, they're more likely to be invested and remember it. When the audience remembers those exact details about your characters, that's how you know you've hit the sweet spot, and you can now focus your attention elsewhere. You don't need your characters to be cool, or a badass, or even relatable for them to be memorable. You just need competent writing. Don't get me wrong, your characters should be at least a little bit interesting, just to keep the audience engaged, but they don't need to be insanely cool in order to be compelling. This doesn't just apply to screenwriting, this applies to all fiction. Actually making your characters as deep as they need to be can take one scene or 100. That's just not what I'm here to talk about though, because I'm not that qualified. But more importantly, that's something that should come from you and your own creative vision, not some random guy on the internet. But how can you test for this? If you're ever wondering whether or not your audience gets enough information, have someone else read your script or book or whatever, and after they're done, just ask them to describe your important characters in a couple sentences without using the names of any other character. This is a very simple test that will let you know if you're on the right track and what you're showing the audience. For Charlotte and Bob, you can describe their characters without talking about anyone else in the movie. This means that we, as the audience, know enough about them to be able to detach them from the confines of the story. Let's take Bob for instance. I know that he's an actor who's tired of his career. He is an absent father, which has caused strain in his already unhappy marriage. He's looking for a deeper connection with someone, but he's also the kind of guy that would move thousands of miles away from his family for a couple of weeks to do advertisements in a country he knows nothing about. Most of all, he is one lonely guy. But for the husband? Yeah, no. He's just Charlotte's husband. He's a photographer and he might be cheating on his wife with Cindy from Scary Movie, but that's about it. While that may seem like I'm criticizing the movie, I'm not. Not every character needs to be like Bob. Most stories need static, one-dimensional, or force of nature characters. In Lost in Translation, every character other than the main two is basically just a one-dimensional or one-note character. And it works because the story isn't about them. They just have to serve their role, and then the movie can be done with them and spend its time doing actually important things with its main characters. Think about it like a basketball team. Not everybody can be my GOAT LeBron. You need some role players who only play defense and knock down threes just to fill out the roster. Not every player can be Kobe Bryant, because there's not enough time in the game for every single player to drop 81 points, and we don't want the whole team doing those things in Denver that we don't speak about. Before writing this movie, Sofia Coppola probably had a very complex understanding of the husband and wife characters. She most likely knew all these little complexities and traits and motivations that they held, but since the audience doesn't need them to be intricate characters, she never showed us those complex sides of them. It's important to know that as the writer, you should understand all your important characters on that deeper level, but you have to ask yourself whether or not the audience needs to understand them on that level, and if they do, then you have to be able to relay that information. As a writer, you have all this knowledge about the piece of fiction you're gonna write, but you can't just share all of it. You're gonna have to mask some things and keep them hidden for mystery, future payoff, and because you generally can't have your movie be 10 hours long. But, from the audience perspective, this is still their first time being exposed to this story, so you're gonna have to be able to relay the information that they need, while keeping the rest under wraps until it's necessary to reveal it. When you are telling a story, you become sort of a teacher in a sense, and the audience is the student. If you think of it this way, it becomes a lot easier to grapple with what you'll need to accomplish in the beginning stages, so the foundation for your story is rock solid. Then you can move off of that and start thinking about plot, character arcs, dialogue, all that good stuff. But yeah, thank you for your time, and take it easy.